Looked up the word cultivate, to cultivate, because I have a title for my sermon called Cultivating a Gratitude Attitude, right? Which is very cutesy, I thought. But cultivate, to grow or raise something under conditions which you can control. To grow or raise something under conditions which you can control. I thought that might have to do with, it sounds like it has to do with raising children, except for the last part. There's no way you can control. To grow or raise something under conditions which you can control. So in the first instance, the original use of the word was, of course, to do with food, with planting crops, and rather than just going out in the forest and foraging and trying to find some nuts here and some berries there, was to actually put some thought into it, some work into it, to have some control over the process. So you would plant the things, and you would maybe help the soil along, enrich it, and water it if you needed to, and those kinds of things, pull the weeds. And so that would be the first instance of the use of the word cultivate. But then as the centuries went by, it kind of came to grow the senses and the kind of bigger meanings. So we today use it very broadly. We use it for things like cultivating, well, as I do, an aristocratic air kind of about you, those kinds of things. You cultivate that sort of thing. You can cultivate various kinds of taste. You can cultivate a taste for fine tea, right? Or classical music, or those kinds of things. You can work at those things. They can grow in you by kind of studying them and finding out more about the finer points and learning to appreciate them more. And so I thought that you can probably, and I believe you can, cultivate an attitude. So there are certain attitudes which are kind of better for you and for society in general, and one of them is gratitude. So if you can cultivate or help along your attitude of gratitude, that would be a good thing. Thank you, Miriam. So today I've got some suggestions about how to do that, and actually they're built on the passage which Gwen read earlier. And the passage is Jesus actually talking and teaching about worry, which is a very pressing thing in pretty much everybody's life. We tend to worry. We tend to fret. We tend to be anxious about this and that. Wow. That's to start rapping or something. That would be sad. So Jesus tells in this parable, not really a parable, he's using imagery from the natural world, which we're going to get to. And I'm going to look at three imperatives in Jesus' teaching and kind of see how they apply to Thanksgiving. But before I do that, I was noticing I had this experience on Monday where I played hockey, and the guys were all leaving the hockey place, and one of the guys calls out to me, have a great Thanksgiving. So I called back, you have a great Thanksgiving. And I said, and don't forget to give thanks. Being brazen, right? And he said surprisingly to me, he says, you know what? He says, I try to give thanks every day. I try to give thanks every day. And this is a guy, I don't think he goes to church that I know of. I don't even know what his background is. Most of the guys of our age that play hockey, somewhere in the distant past, they probably went to Sunday school and had some kind of, they were churched a bit. So that could be where he's coming from. I don't know. But I often hear this expression, even on the television, you'll say, I'm really, some celebrity or other will say something about how they're really thankful for this or that. And it makes me wonder exactly what do they mean by that. I think it's a good thing to be thankful, but I think a lot of the time when people say that, so just to kind of differentiate, I think what people are really saying is, they're appreciative. They're happy. I'm happy. And I'm thankful, meaning I'm appreciative for something that I've got or something that I can do or some privilege that I have, because maybe I can look around and see that not everybody else around me has that same privilege. So it still begs the question, if you say I'm thankful, who are you thankful to? Is there anybody in particular you would like to say thank you to? Now, I know when they come up to receive their Oscars, they have a big, long list of people. But it could be, lots of people, it may be like the universe, right? I'm thankful to the universe that I've got such and such. Or it may be just luck. I'm thankful to luck because I've got so much good things or whatever. So the difference between perhaps what we're after, what we're focusing on, is the answer to that question: who are we thankful to? And the answer, of course, is to God. That there is a real being who has given us and gifted us all these good things, and He's real and He exists. And to me, that if there's one thing that grows on me as the years go by, it's just that absolutely everything I have, that I love, that I enjoy, that blesses me, and everything that I can do is the gift of God. And we have a tendency to take the glory for ourselves, And so that needs to be kind of something that where we can grow our attitude. To understand that everything that you have, everything that you can do, everything that you are, all your abilities, all that sort of thing is God's gift to you. And you are God's gift to others. It's all from the gracious hand of God. So think about it. You think, well, no, I made my own living, and I made my way, and I did it, and I'm good at it. And yeah, but why? How did you get those abilities? How were you able to think that through? Because God gave you those perceptions and those, the ability to think and to use your muscles and your mind and your will. He put you together for that purpose, and he did it so that you could do something, so that you would get more joy from your having a part in it. That's how much He gave you. Okay, so point 1 here. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food. The body is more than clothing. Here's imperative 1. Consider the ravens. Okay? So what you take home today, here's what I want you to do. Consider the ravens. So the imperative is on the word consider. And consider means think about, ponder. Kind of imagine and play with it in your mind a little bit and learn stuff about it. And maybe ask some questions. How often do you consider ravens? Probably not very often. And they're out there. They really are. I mean, we have ravens around our house, I know. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between a crow and a raven. But it's important that you do. So for instance, what do you call it when you have a whole bunch of crows together? A murder of crows. That's right, a murder of crows. So it's basically very simple. What crows like to do is murder. When you have a big bunch of ravens around, what do you call them? Did I hear it? A conspiracy. Come on. Yes, of course. Everybody knows that. It's a conspiracy of ravens. See, that's how they're different from crows. Because crows, they just kill people. Ravens, they think about it. They conspire. They're way smarter. They're very adaptive. They live almost everywhere in the world, especially where there's people, because they're omnivores. They can scavenge. They can hunt. They can do all these kinds of things. So they're quite interesting. People have been intrigued by ravens for centuries. In fact, most of us who have kind of Celtic or Nordic backgrounds at all, our pagan ancestors were into worshiping ravens and consider them mystic symbols and signs and all those kinds of things. Jesus just considers them birds. But He wants us to think about them. Consider the ravens. He says, you know what? They don't really do much. They don't plan ahead. They don't sow fields. They don't, water the crops. They don't, they don't grow mice. They just get up, fly around, pick up some food. He says they don't store for the winter either. They don't make barns or anything. So he says, they don't sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. God feeds them. He cares about them. Are you not much more valuable than are the birds? So that's, Jesus trying to get us our heads around the idea that the ravens, which are, the common raven, it doesn't even think for itself, and it gets fed. And God cares about you more than He cares about them. Do you not think He's going to take care of you? So that's kind of in the first, but there's an undertext here, if you will, that's implicit in this, And that's that Jesus wants us to consider creation. That there is this thing that is the created world. Emphasis on created. Because to me, the first point in understanding thankfulness or being thankful is to understand that there is one to be thankful to. And we're up against a world which really doesn't put much stress on that. In fact, the prevailing academic perspective in our world is that the world popped into being by random chance. Really. Okay? So, no, really. And it pervades the philosophy and the thinking. It's all through, like, I love CBC radio. I listen to it all the time. I like the talk shows. It's just chock full of underneath the scene of the evolutionary perspective and philosophy. I mean, it's coming at me all the time. Television's full of it all the time. That really there's no explanation for our being here except accident, luck, I don't know. We just popped into being, this whole universe and all its wonder. Do you really buy that? I know we could have a great argument about this, and I'm willing to, one-on-one. Not going to do it with you pew to pulpit. But I'm very, very convinced that there is a designer, a creator. And when I look at the physical world, I see it everywhere. I mean, I see design, I see ingenuity, I see engineering, I see wisdom, I see beauty. One cell in our bodies. Just take one cell that we've learned about so far, and there's this. It's like a city in itself. It's got all kinds of systems in there to do all the kinds of things that a city would. I mean, it's got a way to turn energy or to turn fuel into energy, and it's got ways of expelling the waste, kind of like the sewage disposal and garbage pickup that we have in our cities. That's all. Each cell has those things. And it's got this big coil thing, molecule called the DNA in there, which is super, super complex. And it's full of information, enough information to reproduce itself. Now, in all our wisdom and all our engineering, we haven't been able to come up with something like that yet. Now, I know we've got 3D printers, but it's not the same, okay? So just to me, the wonder of the created world and the reality and the truth that I think is in our face, I think it's glaring that there is a loving, wise designer behind it all. I think it's just there. And we can talk about that later. So that to me, that's the starting point for thankfulness. There has to be someone to be thankful to. All that, it speaks powerfully of the truth of God's existence. So not only did God make ravens and us, but he provides for them, and he provides for us. Reasons to be thankful. Point 2, and this is the second imperative. If you've got a Bible, it's in verse 27. It's the same as the first imperative. He says, again, consider. He said, consider the ravens. Now he says, consider the lilies. And you think, oh, it's a kind of repetition of the first thing, right? But it's not. He's got a different angle here. Consider the lilies, how they grow. So he wants us to actually stop and think about flowers. Not just say, hey, there's a pretty flower, but wow, that's a pretty flower. Why? It just seems to automatically produce all these gorgeous petals with a few like intricately fine, delicate little colors, specially colored in it, all the colors that there are. You can find in flowers. Do we need those? Does random chance universe need, just almost an infinite variety of flowers? Probably one would do. I'm not sure. But for some reason, God has decided to make an awful big pile of different kinds of flowers. And not only that, all the rest of the intricate, beautiful things that are in creation. Jesus says, I tell you, they don't work at it. They don't make their own petals. I mean, they do, but they don't have like a sewing machine or a loom or a spinning wheel or anything like that. They just poof, there it goes. He says they don't do that, and yet Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed as one of these. And Solomon was a super rich guy. His closet was full. Let me tell you. I mean, he had seamstresses and tailors, I'm sure, gowns that were just gorgeous. The best stuff that human beings can put together with all our wisdom and ingenuity does not compare with one flower. Now, the thing about that is, to me, that God is not just the creator, he's extravagant about it. I mean, there's one word, a word that will characterize our God is he is extravagant. I mean, I think maybe his policy is go big or go home, and he never goes home, you know. He always goes big, always. And when you look at the world, that's what it's like. He doesn't, you know, all the creatures are not necessary. He just likes that. He likes to go way overboard. We are wise people that can sit and listen to a sermon. We're the only creatures that can do that, you know that, and barely, but yeah, and comprehend. You know, like that's not. I mean, the world would be fine without human beings, really. All those other creatures, they could take it. We aren't necessary, and yet God decided, let's make something that's in my own image and after my own likeness, that's rational, that's emotional, that's volitional, and you know, in just. That can understand abstract concepts and get to know me and be like me. He didn't need to do that, but he did. Extravagance. You look around you and the world is full of flowers and all kinds of extravagance. Look at this. Did you need to make, how many stars are there? I forget. Sometimes I go through the numbers, how many trillions of galaxies there are and how many trillions of stars there are in each galaxy. Do we really need all those? Crazy. Did you see the rainbow this morning? Oh my God. You got to get up at 8 o'clock and head to Inglesby. And if you do that, it was over like behind your place. So did you see it? Yeah? Yeah. Doug saw it. So, I haven't seen one like this in a long time. It went right across from one end right to the other, the full semicircle. And then there was another one, just a shadow of one, like just behind it going up. I stopped the car and took pictures with my phone. That's how cool and modern I am. But, you know, shut up. You know, I know there's a physical, natural explanation for rainbows, like the scattering of light rays reflects the spectrum, et cetera, and it has to do with water particles in the air and stuff, but forget that. It just was gorgeous, eye-droppingly, mind-bogglingly beautiful. Does God have to do that? He built it into the physical creation. Just to throw a little added something in there today. See, he's really, really extravagant. So Jesus wants us, I think, to consider the lilies, to think about, not only does he create us and provide for us, he goes way overboard. You know, he's extravagant. And if we understand that and know that and consider that, that will make us more thankful. Point 3, the last verse of this passage, is another imperative. He says, seek, but seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. So all these things that people go seeking after, everything everybody worries about, you know, whether we'll have enough to eat tomorrow, all that sort of thing, he says, put that to the side. Here's the first thing. Seek God's kingdom. And all that will be added to you. It'll come. Don't sweat it. So he's saying make God's reign, his kingdom, make his purposes, his will, your first choice, your first priority, your number one. Yeah, you know, that's actually what Jesus is saying when he teaches us to pray the Lord's Prayer. Because if you think about the Lord's Prayer, it says, you know, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Give us this day our daily bread. No. It's there, but it's later on. The first thing he says to pray, once you kind of give praise, is, your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The first thing that Jesus is after, he wants us to cultivate, is a desire for God's will to be done rather than our will. I mean, our first inclination is, of course, I want. This is what I want. Lord, please give it now. But Jesus, when he teaches us to pray, says, your will be done and your kingdom come. It's a lot like seek first the kingdom of God and his rightness or his righteousness. Let the things that the whole world worries about and longs for and chases after, and, you know, to some extent rightly so, let it take a back seat. Now, there's only one way that I know of that works, or that will happen for us, because that's not natural and that's not normal. We don't say, you know what, the only thing about my life, I'm just going to do what God wants. And I'm going to, that's not the way we are. Not naturally. So the way that does happen is when we start to follow Jesus. He is the way that God connects to us. And, He is God's way of connecting to us. Without Jesus, we don't get God. So God, we're so far off from Him. We're so kind of estranged from Him. We're so ignorant of Him. He's got a bad name in our midst. So what He does is He becomes one of us and walks this earth with us and chats with us and tells us wonderful stories. He also gets hungry and He eats with us, and He gets thirsty and He drinks with us. He gets tired and He lays down and has a sleep like us. He has friends and He has family around Him like us, and they give Him all kinds of grief like us. And he gets depressed like us. In the garden it said, my soul is sorrowful even unto death. And then, he suffers and He dies like us. But not only like us, but for us. And the thing about that is that all that is so that we will get somehow in our hearts, when we get it, that He really, really loves us and cares about us. And you can't start to say, yeah, I'm going to put God first in my life, till you know that He put you way, way ahead of more of His own interests than you can possibly imagine. His interest is your well-being. His interest is loving you. His interest is that you might be forgiven, hence the cross of Christ. His interest is that you might be healed. His interest is that you might be transformed. His interest is that you might be a useful, happy, strong person. You might be all that you were always meant to be. And that's what Jesus Christ came into this world to do. And once we start to get that, then the seek first thing is a response. It's a response. It's not something that we can do by command because of duty. It's only something that happens when we get that God first loved us in Jesus. And then we respond. And we say, man, nothing matters to me, really, but serving this one. And what matters to me is following this one. What matters to me is learning about this one and becoming like this one. And that's seeking first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. And all the rest of those things will be added to us. But what happens mysteriously when we do that, when we put aside the things that the whole world is chasing after, and we go after the things that God's about, and we seek it. We just keep pushing for it. When that happens, you get thankful. You get joyful. And it increases and it grows. And you cultivate an attitude of gratitude. Shall we pray?